Hey everyone, today we'll be making a biodegradable plant pot using eggshells and natural dye. It's a sustainable, regenerative alternative to plastic planters, which often end up buried for centuries, releasing harmful chemicals. This eggshell pot, however, provides structural integrity for a plant in its early stages, then naturally decomposes to enrich the soil with nutrients and calcium, acting as a fertilizer. Not only that, the pot we are cooking up today will also incorporate pH indicator that changes color to show shifts in the soil's acidity or alkalinity, so you can monitor plant health and see the pot's progress towards decomposition. Now let's dive into the ingredients. Firstly, our main ingredient here is of course the eggshells. Packed with calcium, they enrich the soil as the pot decomposes, and for this experiment, you want to crush them all dry to get a smooth texture. I used a coffee grinder for this, which works great to get a fine powder that blends well with other ingredients and makes the pot sturdy. Source about 160 ml, and I used up a lot of ingredients to make 2 pots and a few smaller samples, but feel free to adjust the measurements to how much you'd like. Next, you'd need red cabbage dye as a natural pH indicator. You can extract this out by first chopping the red cabbages into tiny pieces, then simmering them on low heat for about an hour while stirring it every now and then strain it to get a rich deep purple dye. It will turn pink in acidic conditions and green in alkaline. Measure out about 160 ml for this step. Lastly, we'll use 20 ml of sodium alginate. It's a flexible natural polymer that forms strong bonds and holds everything together when mixed with calcium ions. For the first step, mix the alginate with the ground eggshells. Then, add the red cabbage dye and quickly mix and combine it as the mixture sets really fast. Net until you get a batter-like consistency that binds together well. If you feel that it's too dry, add more dye or add more eggshell powder if it's too sticky. Also a tip, it's easier to net it on a baking paper surface. When you're satisfied with the mixture, it's time to start molding. I used a mold which I wrapped with baking paper to prevent sticking and to make it easier to remove later. Press the mixture onto the mold walls bit by bit until they're covered nicely and even. You're free to make it any thickness you like, but generally you wouldn't want it to be too thick that it makes it hard to decompose, or too thin that it won't be sturdy and form cracks on the surface when it dries. I aim for a thickness of around 4 to 6 millimeters. When you're done molding out the shape, you can let your pot set in the mold for about a day or two to harden. With the baking paper, you can carefully remove from the mold, flip it to get all the surface area exposed and let it set again. Drying doesn't take too long and could be done in even just a day, but since you want to make sure that they're really dry and stable, we can take a few more days or about a week. Once that's done, you can now add soil and a small plant. This pot will last long enough for your plant to grow, then eventually slowly break down to add nutrients back to the soil. One cool thing about this pot is the color changing feature thanks to the cabbage dye. This dye will change color based on soil pH, so you get a hint about soil health as you care for your plant. A color shift to pink, for instance, might mean it's time for a bit more water. And there you have it, a biodegradable plant pot made from eggshells and natural dye. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you have as much fun with this experiment as I did. See you next time!